Welcome back to another asset store review. This is a special one this week because Unity is having their Sprint into Spring sale for 2021 starting from the 12th to the 30th of April. So they will be having one asset for sale per day during this time, where those assets will be marked down by 70%. So if you guys want some awesome assets, please check it out. Some of them are expensive, so I decided to review them before each asset goes on sale. So hopefully I'll get to some of the better ones, but time is of the essence. So I'm starting off with GeNa Pro. Let's do it. I've imported GeNa into my project. And what I usually do with a new asset is just check out the documentation quickly. So I'm going to Assets, Procedural Worlds, GeNa, Documentation, and it's over here. So you want GeNa Pro documentation, not the API reference. Or you can check that out later yourself if you want to do any coding to enhance this. Okay, so GeNa Pro is a sophisticated spawning system that enables you to rapidly and intuitively populate your scenes with assets. Cool. Okay, let's see. This is a little intro thingy here. Concepts based on the Wagyu Aboriginal word GeNa means to put or to plant. Okay, let's see what this Wagyu Aboriginal language is all about. So, for those of you who don't know, Wagyu is a near extinct Australian language spoken by fewer than 10 people. Okay, so we stole their land, drove them to near extinction, and now we're stealing their almost extinct words. Awkward. Let's move on. Okay, jokes aside, this documentation is really extensive. They put a lot of work into this, but they do mention that this could be out of date with what's with the videos or what's in the in-place help system. But I think this documentation is still quite good. But probably it's better to check out the videos, and if you scroll down a bit, okay, we'll come here to this tutorials page. Let's just click on there. Okay, so the other awesome asset that I've used of theirs is Gaia Pro. If you haven't, then I really suggest getting that. Unfortunately, it's not part of the sale, so you'll have to pay full price, but that is definitely one of the better assets I've bought, and worth every cent. So check it out. So we're going to check out GeNa Pro. I see there's a free version as well, but I bought Pro already, so let's check this out. The video playlist here on YouTube, and I did some of this already, so I'm just going to go through it quickly and recreate what I've done, or create something maybe a bit different and take you guys through that process quickly. This video is not intended to be a tutorial as such, just a review. So if you guys want to get into this, then I really suggest you look at this video playlist of theirs. It's official playlist. So let's see what my experience is with this. So I'm going to do this and just talk through it quickly and take it from there. I'm not going to go into a lot of detail on this. Okay, so when I got started with this, I realized that I was rather lacking with Unity's terrain tool, so I had to come and do a bit of a refresher. So I used this How to Make Beautiful Terrain in Unity 2020 beginner tutorial by Gurus. I will put a link in the description, but I used this to get started. And they use the following assets. It is Terrain Tools Sample Asset Pack, which I've downloaded and imported already, as well as Realistic Tree 9, Outdoor Ground Textures, Grass Flowers Pack free, and that is it. So you can see in my project, I've already imported all of those. So I'm not going to waste your time by showing you how to import all of those. I assume you know already. And let's see what I can do. Okay, here I'm just going to create a terrain quickly. So creating a new scene and call it GeNa test. Save that, and I'm going to speed through this. So just create a simple terrain. If you guys do not know how to do this, please check another tutorial. I put a link in the description for a tutorial that I used. That is very, very good. So here just sculpting some mountains, and we need it to be a bit steep. No, well, not that steep, but a bit steep, because we're going to be adding rivers in, which I need to test out. So the automatic river creation utility on Gaia, or I mean on GeNa, automatically detects slopes in your terrain and will get your river to flow downwards. Okay. Yeah, I'm just using other brushes just to give some texture to my mountains. So it's not just completely smooth. I'm going to add trees in a bit. But for now, let's see. We need to add in some textures. Yes, I'm adding grass textures and whatever else there is. Just some ground. And I'm just going to paint it in. Look, I'm not looking for absolute perfection here, so... And I'm not good at this. I actually do not like working with terrain, but I thought this will be a good exercise to see what I can actually do with this GeNa Pro. If it's anything as good as Gaia is, then it should be a really awesome asset. As a matter of fact, I think GeNa is meant to be used with Gaia, but I wanted to try it out with Unity's standard terrain editor. So let's see, just add some snow there on the peaks. And thereabouts, just get it looking a bit more land-like and not too cartoony. Okay, onto adding in the trees. This is a very slow process, so I'm just going to speed through this, because you have to add in the trees onto the terrain before you can use it with GeNa. Okay, because the terrain and GeNa work hand in hand. And I mentioned Gaia earlier, so Gaia also works with Unity's standard terrain. Okay, so getting there, almost done. Okay, perfect. We've got all our trees in. I'm going to speed through this as well. You need to add the grass in as well. So one at a time, and you can see I've got quite a lot to add in. Unfortunately, it has to be done. The grass also works hand in hand with Unity's standard terrain. GeNa will not pick up your grass objects if they are not added in here like this. So, and the same thing goes for the trees. I think that is, those are the only thing that's needed, if I'm not mistaken. Okay, something I forgot, we need to add in the grass meshes as well. So some of the assets that we imported earlier actually gives you grass available as meshes. It's not just plain textures, which is quite nice because you will see them actually swaying in the wind. Here's a tip for you guys. If you guys want to work with GeNa as it is, because it is a bit buggy, just make sure you back up your scenes every now and then, because sometimes it just doesn't save properly. Other times it just crashes. It crashes Unity completely and you have to start again. Okay, so now we got to get to the interesting part where we create GeNa spawners, which will spawn our trees. And okay, you can see there, I just chose a palette. I'm adding trees with that button at the bottom. And now you have to go and choose a different tree for each one of those that we added in, because it defaults to the first one. So this here definitely takes time, and there's room for improvement here with the tool, I think. Okay, we need to do the same with the grass. So we're creating a grass spawner, adding them all in, and selecting all the different textures and meshes that we added in earlier on the standard terrain. So here you'll see there's a success slider that you can use for each one of the trees, and that's basically going to specify how often your trees are going to spawn, or the chances of success of that tree being spawned. So obviously you don't want everything at 100, and you're going to choose the ones you want most often, set that to 100, and you can do the same thing for the grass. So I'm setting the flowers to a very low percentage, and then the actual grass and also the meshes I'm setting to low percentage. And you'll see here I should have actually set it lower, but at this point I'm just experimenting and figuring things out. We are finally ready to start spawning trees. You can see I'm just increasing the range and throw distance. Throw distance basically how far away from each other each of the trees spawn. Instances there is how many trees spawn at once. So if okay, firstly you have to hold on shift and click around to get the orientation of the landscape. It just does some calculations. Then you can hold down control and left click, and that will start placing trees. You can see it like kind of places them in groups. At the moment I've got that mode set to single. I'm changing it to paint, so you can just hold down control and click and drag, and that just like paints it on. And all the different trees are being spawned, so it's not just one type of tree. I don't know if you guys can notice that, but just trust me, it is actually, they are all different, and they seem to be spawning based on the actual percentages that I set, so that is great. And just see there, that undo button that I clicked, you have to use that for GeNa to undo. You cannot use your normal Control Z. And let's see, just increase the throw distance a bit. Okay, you can see they spawn a bit further apart from each other. You can't really notice it when you are painting though. Well, actually I can, because that's the trees are spread up much further apart than it was earlier. I mean, not much further, but they are definitely further apart. The same process you'll do for the grass. So you have to do that shift click all over the place and then start clicking and dragging the grass. So look, I did not do a great job here, and some of my settings were just incorrect, so that's why it's spawning so slowly. I should have changed that instances down like drastically for the grass, but yeah, live and learn. So this like really brought my Unity to a crawl. So just be careful of that, the instances and just some of the settings there in general. Okay, so yeah, I did not configure all my grass properly. In terms of the percentages and the colors just look weird. But I think it's also got to do with the ground color. So that weird dark brown color with the very bright green just does not look that great. So you can see I went and changed the color of the ground and then started, I made it green, and then I added in the grass again. Well, I didn't have to add the grass in again, but yeah, that looked better. It's not great, and I did a terrible job there. Sorry about that, but just keep that in mind. It can look a lot better. Okay, now we are at the point where you want to add a river. So you see what I did there. Right click GeNa and GeNa River Flow. And what this will do is it allows you to auto generate rivers, and it's meant to calculate by just control clicking on one of the mountains. It's meant to calculate the slope and generate that whole, well, it generates a spline, and along that spline it will generate a river. So I'm trying to figure out the spot here because it's not flowing down completely, but I don't think it will. So eventually I choose the mountain here on the right hand side, and that looks a bit better, but it still doesn't go right down. So what I ended up doing is just creating that river. Click on the create river spline button, and what you can do here is just click on the last node there and control click along the ground to create the rest of the river. You can see I'm not good at creating terrain. This looks awful, but then again I'm just experimenting. And yeah, that looks okay, I guess. And what I'm doing is just playing with some of the settings here. So simplify, just remove some nodes that's not needed. Smooth actually gets the rounding a bit smoother. And snap to ground will just conform all those nodes to your terrain. I'm just going to play with that height offset a bit because you can see it doesn't quite look right. The first tool that I have selected there is called the carve tool, and it will just carve out the section of your terrain. It doesn't work on the bottom part of your terrain, the flat bit, the ones that's kind of at sea level, I guess. It only works on the raised terrain. Which was a bit annoying to me, but it is what it is, and it works well. Okay, the carve works well, but you have to actually click on carve before it takes effect, which is what I did there. And you can see there it did nothing on the flat bit, but it carved out those sections on the mountain and on the left hand side. There's these clear details which will clear out the grass and trees for you. Yeah, so some nice little plugins that you can add in. These are the default ones, so whenever you create a river spline, it will create these for you. I haven't played around with and checked what others are available. I just use these basic ones. And here you can see I'm changing the width, and that's the width along which the trees will be cleared, or the grass in this case, and doing the same thing on... Oh wait, that's the grass. I was meant to do the same thing for the trees. Anyway, to the river. And here I play around with the width and the height and try to get it looking decent. You can see that start depth will actually raise it off the ground. Let's try to get that looking a bit nice. The problem is those billboarding of the trees weren't working quite well, so it was difficult to check properly. Okay, so playing with the width a bit. You can see it's not even, well, half the river's in the mountain there, so it's, you can't see the width increasing there. I must be honest, I struggled with this quite a bit. I thought it was going to be a lot easier to use, but I guess it just takes some practice. Playing with the depth a bit again. Bring it more down. I think I eventually settled on the value of 0.4 or something like that. Yep. Cool, that looks good. But the grass was irritating me a bit, and I think I just went through and changed the colors of that grass. Anyway, you have to go to your reflection probes. So this generates reflection probes for you, which is quite nice. Spawn that and bake that, and then you have to click on trees or the river as well, and click on bake. That will generate a mesh for you for your river. And cool, that's all done. Then after this, I just go and change the color of the grass, which I'm going to skip through. So you can see here, there seems to be a bit of a bug. I thought it was a bug, but it was my lack of knowledge of using terrains properly. So there's a setting on the terrain. You can see that waterfall looks like it's waterfall. The river looks like it's in front of the trees in places, like you can see here. And the problem with that was a setting on my terrain, so that looks awful. Okay, so you have to go and click on terrain, and there's something called billboarding where it will, instead of using the actual meshes of the trees, it will use a texture that it generates, and that is for performance reasons. So if you go and click on the terrain and on that cog, and see there's billboard start. So if you billboard that a bit later, I take that distance up a bit, then you can see it looks like the trees are up in front of it. So in other words, it's not using a texture and it's using the actual meshes still. So great, that looks a lot better. On to the final part of the video. Firstly, before we start, I actually generated lighting, so that's why it looks so much better. So yeah, and then I start with the road. So you right click in here, the road spline, and control click. And the road generation works so much better than a river generation. This just works. So I hope they fix the river generation to work like this. And see, I'm just left clicking, control left clicking, and I must say this is quite an impressive tool. So you use it exactly the same like you do the river tool, but this just works a lot better. With the river tool, if I did this, just moving the splines around, I found that 9 times out of 10, Unity would crash. And that was not happening with the road. So yeah, I'm just snapping it to ground, simplifying, smoothing, and using the carve extension and the carve modifier. Just carve out a section there of the landscape so that road sits nicely. Cool. And do the clear grass and clear trees thing again. And road, and that's where you click on bake road. So something you guys might have picked up is my river's gone. Or I actually moved it to the right hand side because what happened was my river just disappeared after Unity crashed and left me with nothing. So I had to go and regenerate that river. So just be careful of that and just keep backing up your scenes. There seems to be a bit of a bug there. And you can see there I just didn't adjust my road properly, so part of the road is under the ground. As you can see, there's my river on the right hand side, just flowing down there. And here, I think I'm going to call that for this video. Just see what my final thoughts are on this. So after all that, GeNa Pro, is it worth it? So the documentation and tutorials, I'll give it a 90%. Very well done and they were easy to follow. Easy to learn, not so much. I think there's quite a learning curve, especially if you're going to use this with Gaia. Gaia has also got quite a learning curve, but for a tool like this, what do you expect? Easy to use. Look, if it wasn't for the bugs that I picked up, I would easily give this a 90. But just, yeah, in case it just crashed Unity completely. And I'll say worth it. The sale price, I'll give that a 90%. Definitely not for the full price while those bugs exist at this point. Okay, so if you can get it on sale, get it on sale. And obviously, I'm sure they will fix those bugs. And just to recap, those were moving the nodes around on the river, was Unity to crash. Undo functionality doesn't always work. And there were times when Unity crashed, or I just closed Unity, restarted it again, and my river disappeared. And this only happened on the river. I didn't notice it happening on the trees or the grass or the roads. yeah, well, I hope that they sort it out, because I do think that this is worth it. Despite any of the negative things that I may have said, the positives definitely outweigh the negatives, and it's definitely worth the price, or the sale price right now. So if you guys can afford it, get it. Cool. Until next time, where I will be reviewing something else. What is it? Nani novel. I'll be reviewing Nani novel, so keep an eye out for that soon. Anyway, until next time, enjoy. I really hope you guys enjoyed the review, and if there's anything else you guys want to see, please drop a comment and I will get to it as soon as possible. Until next time, enjoy.